Testing, testing. Okay, we're good. Thank you everyone for having me. Thank you so much to RootCon for accepting my talk. It's actually been a very long time since I've spoken in person to such a large audience, so I'm actually quite nervous. Since the pandemic, I don't think I've spoken to such a large number of people, so I'll do my best not to seem like I'm super scared or shaky or start chattering my teeth or anything. But anyway, so thank you so much for the kind introduction. My talk today is going to be hacking back your car, featuring a little bit of ChatGPT. So without further ado, let me just really quickly go over, there we go. Okay, the agenda for today's talk. So the objective of today's talk, I wanted to do a quick look through history of how car hacking has been developed into a tool used to facilitate vehicle theft. In Jay's talk earlier today, he mentioned a couple of different attacks, like the relay attack, the replay attack, and the CAN bus injection attack that was very popular in the last few years. And actually, I'm going to be covering some of those same attacks in my talk at a more technical level. We're going to look at how these attacks are performed, the different types of countermeasures to each attack, and looking at the different benefits to performing either of these attacks, or any of these attacks, from an attacker's perspective, right? So which ones are more efficient from a manpower perspective or a technical knowledge perspective, so on and so forth. So very quickly, just another who am I. So my name is Kamel Ghali. I am a security delivery manager at Accenture in Japan. I know that Accenture is, I think, pretty well known here in the Philippines. I think we have a really big presence in Manila. We actually spent a couple of days in Manila meeting with some of our colleagues. It was really great to meet them. Honestly, it's my first time in the Philippines, and I've had such a great time. I hope I can come back soon. But I've been with the company for a little while, but before that, I worked as an automotive security vulnerability tester or penetration tester. So I've worked most of my professional life on the technical side, doing penetration tests for vehicles, car hacking research, vulnerability analysis, so on and so forth. I'm the lead for the automotive security research group in Japan. You can see the logo in the corner down there. This slide format is actually the one that I use for our ASRG presentations. I made it myself. I quite like it. That's why I kind of recycled it for this one here. I felt like it was appropriate. But ASRG is an organization that encourages the open sharing of information related to automotive security. So it's an organization with several, 100,000 members worldwide. Anyone's allowed to participate. You don't have to be, a really important executive or anything. You can be a hacker or an enthusiast or an academic who's just doing research. We're happy to have you. I'm also on the staff for the car hacking village for DEF CON. So we do have a car hacking village this year at RootCon. I'm going to be hanging out there after the talk. I think there's one more talk I want to watch today. That's immediately after mine. So after that one finishes, I'll be out there with my equipment, my car hacking tools, and I'll be playing with some of the modules there. So if you'd like to come and watch that or just try it out for yourself, I'll be happy to let you guys take a look at what car hacking hardware actually looks like. And then finally, as of last year, I'm also an organizer for the Tokyo branch of B-Sides, right, the B-Sides conference series. So, on to today's topic, right? Stealing cars. So ever since cars have been, this is very much like an American perspective, I will have to add, because I'm American. I originally, grew up in Michigan, but I now live in Tokyo. But since cars became so commonplace in society and part of like the everyday life, right? Your car is kind of like, at least in the United States, where we don't really have good public transportation, having a car is kind of a prerequisite to having a good, well-adjustable life, right? To be able to go places and get around. And ever since that's become true in the whole world, people have realized, they make a pretty good, appetizing target for thieves, right? So thieves have been stealing cars for as long as people have been buying them, right? I didn't look up like the first reported incident of a car being stolen, but it's pretty, well known that if you park your car in like a bad area, there's a chance somebody breaks your window and tries to steal your car. It's a thing that happens, right? But, from the car thieves perspective, it's gotten a little bit less profitable over the years. And we'll talk about why that is in a second. But you'll actually find that a lot of thieves, when they steal a car now, they have this very it's like a hot potato, right? They want to get rid of it as soon as possible and find a way to turn it into cash or some other benefit that they can hold on to, as opposed to a car that's outfitted with GPS that the police are tracking and trying to find them, right? But no matter what, even if your car gets found later, having your car stolen like at night before you got to go to work the next day will definitely ruin your week. Like that is one of the worst things that can happen to you on a Monday morning. So I was doing some research, and I asked ChatGPT. You know, I was trying to like learn the steps that are usually taken to perform a carjacking, because I've never actually stolen a car before, right? Contrary to popular belief, I've never actually stolen a car myself. So I asked ChatGPT, what are the steps of a carjacking? And as helpful as ever, ChatGPT says, carjackings can happen very quickly, but they usually follow a general pattern. The steps of a carjacking may include 1, approach. The carjacker approaches. And that was it. So I said, okay, what's next? And ChatGPT says, that depends on what you need assistance with. Can you please provide me more information or specify what you would like help with? At which point I gave up. Clearly, ChatGPT wasn't the resource I needed to consult for this. But I did a little bit more research, and this time I turned to my old friend, Google. And I found a couple of cool diagrams for getting inside a car and explaining how stealing a car actually happens. And so I kind of narrowed things down into 2 major operational phases for the stealing of a car, right? Step 1, find a way to get inside the car. Step 2, do something to get this car to start, and then you can drive it away and then move forward into your, I don't know how you launder a car into money, right? Like we'll talk about that in a second. But you find some way to profit from it, right? You have the car and it's moving, and you can take it away from where it was. And in my research, I found that this 2-step methodology has remained largely unchanged for the last like 30 years. So a couple of examples of how you can get inside a car with like the hanger method, right? You take like one of those wire coat hangers and you slide it in underneath the rubber ceiling, right, on the outside of the window, and you can actually try and like pull up the lever that's connected to like the car lock, and you can unlock the car and get inside like that. And then when it comes to actually starting the car, you know, older cars, you could actually start the vehicle by just shoving a screwdriver into the right knob and then turning it the right way, and then well, now you can drive off, and you know, the owner of the car is none the wiser. But you know, as I mentioned, this has been a problem for as long as cars have existed. And cars have really evolved a lot in the last couple of years. So, you know, over the last 20, 30 years or so, cars have begun to grow technologically, right? They're much more advanced now than they were in the past. So a lot of different technological advances have made car theft way more difficult, right? Things like car alarms, right? I think we had an announcement earlier, somebody's Suzuki was making some noise in the parking lot, maybe because somebody bumped into it or some other issue. But then there's also things like GPS tracking, right? We use our navigation systems in the car to tell us where to go when we're going somewhere. But likewise, that same system can be used to tell you where the car is, you know, from somewhere else. So police have been known to use GPS tracking in vehicles that have that enabled to actually find stolen vehicles. License plates and license plate tracking, right? If you've ever, like, I know our last speaker was an ex-cop. If you've ever seen like a modern like police car and like the kind of like software they use to scan license plates in real time as they drive by, you can literally see like the driver's profile pull up within seconds of the car passing from like a camera doing automatic image processing on the license plate and just querying a database of license plate registration information, and you can get all that info. So if you steal a car and that license plate is known, then now the police are on, the lookout. If they catch that in one of their scanners, they'll know you're there. So another obstacle to the profitability of stealing cars. And then this one is really important too, is immobilizers. Essentially, an immobilizer it immobilizes the car. It does exactly what it sounds like. But the way it works is it actually will prevent the car from moving unless the car is able to pick up a certain passive radio signal from the key that's supposed to be used to start the car, right? And these technologies have very slowly but surely become commonplace in cars. It's essentially the industry standard, right? It's not so much a legal requirement as it is you would be stupid not to have one of these. So for the most part, on the market at least, every car you find will probably have an immobilizer. There are some exceptions, but we'll talk about that in a second. And so, as a result of all these technological advances, I pulled this really cool graph from statista.com. They're not sponsoring this talk or anything, but I stole this from their website. But this is a cool graph that shows how car thefts in general, since 1990, have really come down. The number of annual car thefts reported has fallen drastically since the 1990s. There's a little bit of a hump right over there you can kind of see. There's a bit of a resurgence that then, drops back down. But we might be able to correlate this with something else in a couple of seconds. But remember when I talked about immobilizers? So this is like one of the first pieces of news I want to cover. But some OEMs decided they didn't want to spend the extra money to put in immobilizers. And so they decided to just pretend they had them. Have you ever heard the trick where you don't need to buy a security system? You just need a home security system. You just need to buy the sign that says you have a home security system and put it in your lawn, and most people will leave you alone. It's true. It's actually quite real. It's a real thing. You can just buy the sign that says home security, 24-hour surveillance, beware of dog, or I don't know what the PG rating on this conference is, but there's some other variants of that. I don't want to say any swear words on stage. But basically, they were going with the camouflage effect. We're pretending we have a security system, and hopefully no one will notice that we don't have it, and no one will start stealing our cars. Until 2021, when some kids in Wisconsin started a TikTok challenge called the Kia Challenge, where they found that Hyundai and Kia vehicles did not have immobilizers. And so you could actually start a Kia without the key, and all you needed was to remove part of the steering column and jam something inside the little knob. There's a little notch that you could churn, and churning that would actually start the car. There was no immobilizer. And the funny thing that they found was that USB Type A plugs fit that knob perfectly. The data on the USB didn't matter. That's not a USB port. It's just they're using the shape of the USB port to actually plug it in and churn it so that it would actually start the car. And eventually, you can see in this news article, starting with model year 2011, Hyundai Motors, which makes Kias and Hyundais, decided not to install a theft prevention mechanism called an immobilizer in certain makes and models. I mean, the writing's on the wall, right? I hope you saved enough money for it to be worth it, because they had to pay out, a $200 million settlement. And, as far as car hacks go, this one isn't very technical, right? Because the actual data on the USB doesn't matter at all. It's just the shape of it that makes it work. So let's look at how actual car thefts have evolved with vehicle technology. By the way, here's a couple of cool charts that show the percentages of all vehicle thefts in the year of 2021 in Milwaukee and Wisconsin versus only Kia and Hyundai thefts. It's 80% of all cars stolen were Hyundai and Kia vehicles. Funny thing is, actually, statewide, throughout the entire United States, insurers would refuse to sell insurance to owners of these cars because, there's literally such a high probability that it'll be stolen that you're not a worthy customer. Imagine an insurance company saying no to your money. It's crazy. But anyway, so on to the more hacky things, right? The more technologically advanced hacks, right? We've got smart cars now, right? More computers, more connectivity, more attack surfaces. And along with all those technological advances we mentioned earlier, right? GPS, immobilizers, so on and so forth, we get to kind of the modern day where cars have much better physical security than before, but as we've seen in a lot of publications of car hacking and vehicle exploitation research, their cybersecurity has taken a hit because the vehicle makers, they've spent a lot of time investing in things like connectivity, autonomy, right? Convenience, making things easy for people to use, right? We'll take a look at things like passive keyless entry in a second, right? All these cool technological advances that the average person sees and thinks, wow, that's so awesome. I can have Wi-Fi in my car. I can play Netflix through my vehicle. But the hacker thinks, oh, you mean it's on the network now? Okay. right? And so cars quickly became like these moving hunks of iron with a lot of computers inside them. And so this is kind of where the first, well-known car theft technique we can kind of read up on that uses car hacking comes into play, right? Replay attacks. Like Jay mentioned, it's very easy to actually sniff the radio frequency that a car key fob transmits on, right? They usually will have the frequency written on the bottom, or you can look it up through its FCC ID. This is publicly available information in the United States. And you can buy some very cheap hardware, like less than $200, to actually monitor that frequency and capture that signal, right? So a cheap software-defined radio, or SDR, is all you need to be able to intercept one of these signals, store it as a file, and then play it back. As a matter of fact, a company called Upstream Cybersecurity, they're very well known for performing a lot of research on like trends in automotive security. And every year they release a global automotive cybersecurity report. They mentioned that the key fob is like in the top 3 most commonly targeted targets in an automobile for a hacker, from a hacker's perspective. And it makes sense. It's pretty easy, right? The process of the attack goes something like this. You have the user here, outlined in black, unsuspecting person just going to unlock his car, and you have a hacker who bought this $40, $50 software-defined radio, and he's got it turned on, and he knows the type of vehicle that he's targeting. So he knows what frequency he has to be monitoring in order to capture a key signal. So the owner comes over and clicks his button, he sends his RF signal, and the car will, of course, react accordingly. It's going to unlock itself, and he's going to be able to drive off. But then later, if there's no rolling code implemented, which Jay actually mentioned himself in his talk, that same key signal could then be replayed later and get the same impact. So if that button was to unlock the car, or lock the car, or open the windows or the trunk, if there's no mechanism to prevent replay of the same attack, the thief, or in this case the hacker, could actually capture that and reuse it as much as they want later. And again, we get now to me asking ChatGPT for some more help. I asked ChatGPT, hey, when were key fobs first used in cars? Like, when did this technology really come about? And apparently the 1980s. So it's actually a little bit older than I thought. And I said, when did key fobs start using rolling codes? I said, car key fobs started using rolling codes in the late 1990s. This technology was implemented to enhance security, and prevent car thefts. Remember that chart I showed earlier? Where is it? Here we go. Like the late 1990s, 1998. This is kind of when things started to like fall down again, right? It kind of jumped back up for a little bit, but eventually they implemented the rolling codes, and this became like an industry standard that you can expect in all modern vehicles going forward today. Except that sometimes, again, the cost-saving things is a very attractive, incentive to not do what you're supposed to when it comes to security. So some manufacturers that start with an H let a hacker unlock and start your car via replay attack, as recently as 2022. So they had improperly implemented rolling codes, and this was unfortunately quite an interesting news story. One of my friends actually talked about this at DEF CON a couple of years ago. I think, last year. And then also, so Jay also mentioned some of these attacks in his presentation, but after the rolling codes got implemented, there are some more complex replay attacks that a lot of researchers introduced. So for example, the roll jam attack and the rollback attack, which is kind of an upgrade on the roll jam attack. The roll jam attack, very simply, it's a very, ingenious attack method. And I highly recommend you read up on it if you're interested in this kind of thing. But what you basically do is you defeat the rolling code protection by preventing the car from receiving the first message, right? Because the way the rolling code works is if I send code number 1, the car will accept that code and unlock. If I send code number 2, it will unlock because it's next in the sequence. But if I try to send code number 1 again, the car won't unlock. So the roll jam attack is exactly that, right? You're using a jamming signal to prevent the car from receiving the signal. while also capturing it yourself. And I don't have a diagram for this one, unfortunately. I didn't put it together because I'm just briefly mentioning it. But basically, when the driver pushes the button for code number 1, I capture it, but I stop the car from receiving it. And then when he presses code number 2, I capture that, and I prevent the car from receiving it. But then I will send code number 1. Remember, the car never received code number 1. So the car is like, sweet, I'm going to unlock. The guy gets in, drives away. I still have that code number 2, the next one in the sequence, that hasn't been used on the car yet. So later, if I go back to the car after the owner's gotten out, I can send code number 2, which has not been registered yet, and the car will unlock. That's the kind of logical, like step-by-step that the roll jam attack uses. I definitely recommend reading up more on it. And then the rollback attack is kind of an expansion of this thought process, whereby they actually attacked the synchronization function inside the rolling code implementation, whereby they could resynchronize the receiver inside the vehicle to older codes that they had captured and saved and then jammed with the same method to be able to enter the vehicle in a time-agnostic way. This is better than the roll jam attack because roll jam necessitates you do it before they use the key again. Again, I didn't go too in-depth into this stuff, so I recommend you read up on it. It's not my own research, so I don't want to take any credit for it, of course. But, one of the things I found is that these are, again, mainly research-based attacks. No one's actually been recorded or documented to have used these kinds of advanced replay attacks to steal a vehicle, to commit any crimes. And there's a couple reasons for this, right? It's quite complicated and requires a lot more hardware, and it requires a good bit of very specific user interaction. You need the person to go up to the car and try and unlock it, and then again in a short period of time. And you need to be jamming it at that time, right? At that exact moment in space and time. You need to be close enough to be able to jam their signal while you also receive their signal. It's a little bit inconvenient to set up. Car hackers are pretty lazy people, right? Like if I was going to work this hard to steal a car, I may as well go to work, right? Like make a living doing something else. And so they've never actually been used to steal a vehicle, but they're still really great from an educational perspective because we learn about the proper way to secure a vehicle in the future. But anyway, who cares? Who cares? Key fobs, that's like 2005 stuff, right? We have passive entry. We have the ability for the car to automatically know that I'm next to it and unlock by itself, right? So how does this work, right? Basically, you have the guy. He walks up to his car, and he's got his key in his pocket, right? Just like this. And when he gets to the car will be able to sense a passive signal that the key is transmitting and unlock. And he says, great, this is amazing. The future is here. He gets inside, and he drives off. Unfortunately, some thieves, and this is where I say thieves, because this one has actually been used in real life to steal vehicles, right? They found out that this signal could be amplified or tunneled over an IP network and then replayed like somewhere else near the vehicle to actually enhance the range that this passive keyless entry works. Because one of the main important safety and security features of this kind of key entry is that it only works when the key is close by. It's only supposed to be detected from a couple of meters away. The signal coming from the key is very weak, and as a result, it's not intended to be used over long distances. But if I know that you keep your keys in a certain room in your house, let's say it's like your office in the house, and it's at the front of the house, and your keys are lying on your desk there. Well, if I set myself up near your car, right, and I've got some equipment, a receiver, connected to a cellular modem or Bluetooth connection or something, and I have my buddy who has a similar device come next to your house. I just need to get my receiver close enough to your house to where my receiver can pick up your key fob signal. And then I can transmit that, I can encapsulate that signal over an IP connection or any other kind of long-range network and just transmit it over to my friend over here who then has a retransmitter. Even if you're using like an encrypted signal at this point, it doesn't matter because I'm sending the whole thing and I can replay it to a car. And your car now thinks, hey, I can feel the signal. I'm going to unlock. And we've actually seen that this has been used in the wild. This has actually been exploited to steal vehicles. There's a really cool diagram that I pulled from leasing.com. Guides, relay car theft. What is it and how can you avoid it? So this is a really cute graphic they put together. It's much better than my Microsoft Icons demonstration I put together in the last slide. But here you can see you have one thief who comes next to the house with a reception unit trying to capture that signal from the key fob, the passive signal. And then he sends it to his friend who has another retransmission module who's next to the car, and the car thinks, well, habba-doody, let you inside, open the door. And from there, depending on the car itself and what kind of implementation they're using for the immobilizer, because sometimes this same signal can also carry the immobilizer signal, right? This is the same signal you need to disable the immobilizer and drive the car away, right? So it'll be different from case to case. But yeah, that's a great way to kind of visualize that, right? And this is something I always find interesting. It's the funniest thing in the world when I see this kind of stuff reported in the Japanese news, right? So this is a screenshot from the Asahi Shimbun. It's a newspaper in Japan. This is an English newspaper in Japan. They basically translate news from other sources for people like me who live in Japan and have a hard time reading in Japanese. But they actually confiscated some equipment used for this kind of attack, this relay attack, in 2022, about a year ago in November of 2022. It says, special equipment used in car thefts known as relay attacks, shown at Saitama Prefecture Police's Koshigaya Police Station on November 1st, 2022. I live in this prefecture. This is 20 minutes from my house. So someone is out there using these advanced car hacking theft techniques to actually steal cars. And there's a market of people who develop this equipment and sell it on the dark web for quite a lot of money. You can sell one of these for $20,000 if you develop one yourself and you find the right, target market for it. It's quite lucrative, as a matter of fact. And then we'll see more examples of hardware being sold to enable car theft. Because, if I steal a car, I'm facing a lot of, risk. I could get arrested. I could get put in jail. But if I just make the tool to steal it and I sell it to somebody else on the other side of the world, he, gives me $20K in Bitcoin and, well, he can go to jail, but, I'm far away from wherever he stole the car from. So these things are available on dark markets. It's really, really interesting. But does this only work for RF, right? Passive radio frequency, simple radio frequency communications, right? We mentioned that there's a lot of new high-spec technological advances in cars, and one of these is a network like Bluetooth, a much more complex network that utilizes security, encryption, pairing technology, key exchange, all that cool stuff that Bluetooth has. And Bluetooth, it's not a protocol, it's a specification that's 10 different protocols all wearing a jacket and pretending to be a protocol. But it does have relatively good security. And so Tesla vehicles, actually, they've implemented a phone as a key app, right? You can actually use your phone as a passive keyless entry key to unlock your car and get inside and start it that utilizes a Bluetooth low energy signal. And one of the things that they added for this is, to make sure that you're not able to relay attack this, they actually added defense measures against relay attacks. They had a time-based security key exchange. So you had to perform a key exchange between the processor in your phone and the engine control unit inside your Tesla within a certain amount of time. Every message had a very short delay tolerance. You didn't have a lot of time to send the messages from the devices to one another after doing all the cryptographic calculations. And this was meant to inhibit relay attacks, because assuming you're tunneling this communication over a longer range network, you're going to increase the amount of latency in this communication. And hopefully this bound on how long you're allowed to take for each of these messages will actually time out the communication. It'll drop the communication, and the relay attack will be unsuccessful. Really, really smart idea, except they didn't really do a good enough job. And as we can see, here in 2022, a consulting group out of the United Kingdom called NCC, they actually showed that they were able to perform a relay attack on the BLE-enabled Tesla keys. And you know, the Tesla keys were like, oh, they use link layer encryption, and like, yeah, you do, but we're just passing back the encrypted packets. We don't need to see what's inside them. We're just passing them back as they are. And they optimized their relay connection to the point where they were able to perform the key exchange within the bounds of that time-based security check. So they were able to optimize it to the point where they actually had enough time to comfortably perform the relay attack and unlock the cars. You know, when this news first released, there was like a much more detailed diagram of how they did this on the NCC website, like showing the actual Tesla messages between the phone and the car. They took it down. They took it down. I could not find it. There was a much more detailed write-up article that I could not find when putting this presentation together. And it really bites because it was a really good one. Like, I love reading technical write-ups of car hacking work. They're always super educational. Maybe Tesla requested that they take it down because it was too detailed regarding their internal key exchange communications. Only God knows, right? But point is, you know, even higher sophistication technologies like Bluetooth can be susceptible to these kinds of attacks. So let's take a quick look at the different ones we've covered so far, right? We talked about the replay attack, the relay attack, and then the NCC Bluetooth relay attack. Keep in mind, this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the different techniques used or like developed to break into a car. There are a lot more, but I tried to focus on ones that were either directly used for vehicle theft or adjacent, like the NCC one. So, of all these three theft techniques, all of them require that the user be close by because they all target the key fob, right? You need to have somebody close to whoever owns the key fob to be able to do this. I put an asterisk next to the NCC one because they theorized that they had optimized it enough to work over like a long-range IP connection. So like if you were in one town and your car was like parked at home in another town, and I had one agent sneak up next to you and one guy next to your car, they hypothesized that they had optimized it enough where it could still work over that kind of long distance, but they didn't prove it, so that asterisk. Does it require user input? So for the replay attack, obviously, yes, it does. I need to see the guy click the button. I need to be there when he clicks the button, which means I need to set up a situation where he has to click the button on his key fob to send out that active signal to his car. And then in cases like the roll jam and roll back attack, I need to have the hardware set up to jam and receive that in the same instance, in the same area. And then, do these techniques allow you to drive the car, right? Well, in the relay attack is kind of like a maybe, but the replay attack, the answer is usually no. Just getting inside the car, in that case, wasn't always enough to start it and drive it away. You would need a second exploit, or some way to start the car, like in the Kia Hyundai case, where you can just take off the steering column and turn something with a USB key and it'll drive off. But in the NCC example we talked about, yes, it did let you drive the car because now you were transmitting the actual key signal from the phone, and that was used to start the car. So that was the same functionality that the application had. What if we had an option that didn't require you to be close to the user, didn't require any owner input, and allowed you to drive the car? And this is where we get into what I like to call the new hotness, right? Like the new trend in car hacking related vehicle thefts. It's a terrible thing to call it, right? Because this is something horrible and it actually happens to people. This is one of like the big differences about this next technique is it's currently still being used to this day. And it targets a lot of vehicles in the world. So, CAN bus, right? Mentioned it, I think Jay mentioned it very briefly. I don't have time to do a full CAN bus lecture. I've done this before. I can talk for hours about this stuff. But long story short, it's an in-vehicle network. It's like a small embedded systems network that goes inside your car. connects the different microcontrollers inside your vehicle to one another and helps them exchange information. It's used in safety-critical applications. So sometimes things like steering, braking, airbags, da-da-da-da. It's meant to be robust and usable in an automotive environment, right? It's also used for diagnostics and reprogramming, right? It's used as the network backbone upon which a lot of diagnostic protocols are implemented for reprogramming vehicle ECUs or getting data from a vehicle or even dumping the firmware from an ECU. All of this is built on top of CAN bus, right? That's like the network backbone that these protocols are built on. And well, you ask, okay, well, if it's so important, and it's in every single car, by the way, can it be abused to steal a car? That's a great question. And the answer is obviously yes. I think Jay mentioned this before, but actually one of our friends, the head of the car hacking village in the UK, his name is Ian Tabor, or Mintynet on Twitter. He had his car stolen with this technique. Like, he's been a member of Car Hacking Village for years. And in 2022, someone stole his car using a CAN injection method. It's really ironic that someone who studies and actually works in vehicle security and reverse engineering had his own car stolen by such a technique, right? And there's actually documented evidence that this happens to a lot of people. Like, all over Europe, people's Toyota vehicles are being stolen. And Toyota and Lexus vehicles that had this vulnerability were mainly targeted because they're quite expensive. And we'll look into the technical details of how it works in a second. But basically, my friend Ian, posted a chronicle on Twitter of how a couple of days in a row he would wake up to find that his RAV4, his brand new Toyota RAV4, would have some damage on the bumper. He thought just somebody, hit and run him, right? Just crashed into it and ran away, but it kept happening. And one day he woke up and it was gone. He's like, what happened, right? So he tried to track it on his app, and he was, basically he saw it kind of driving towards the ocean, and then just the signal cut out, and he wasn't able to get any more info from it. And now, I'm going to try and keep this, digestible for people who aren't super well-versed in car hacking. There's a really great write-up at the technical level by Ian and another fellow who worked with him named Ken Tyndall. He's a genius, expert CAN bus security researcher. He has a really great article on his website that goes through all the full nitty-gritty technical details of this. But put very simply, I'll explain to you a little bit about the network segmentation that was going on in this CAN bus, right? So inside the vehicles, the RAV4s, there were several different CAN buses, which is very common, and then they're all connected to this gateway unit, right? This gateway unit is only designed to forward diagnostic messages from one bus to the other. You're not supposed to be able to send other traffic normally, right? But there are some exceptions sometimes. For example, in this case, right, the smart key, this is the immobilizer kind of, right, is on one CAN bus, and the actual engine control is on a different CAN bus. And they need to communicate, because when the smart key receives the signal, this is a wireless-enabled microcontroller. It has the wireless connection needed to detect that the key is close by and therefore unlock the car. It needs to let the engine controller know. And so it happens to be on the same network as the headlight. So what the thieves were doing is they would remove the plug from the headlight. They would tear off the bumper, unplug the headlight, and use the connector to plug in a device that would send some malicious CAN payload that would do a couple of things, right? The first thing it would do is it would disable the real smart key ECU. And then what it would do is it would kind of take over for it. It would begin transmitting the messages that the smart key ECU usually sends. And instead of saying, hey, there's no key found, periodically, they would say, hey, we found the key. Unlock the car, right? And all of this functionality was packed inside a JBL speaker. This is just a small Bluetooth speaker, right? You can buy one of these, costs $7, $8 or something online, right? But they were actually modifying the hardware inside. So some team of sneaky developers were buying these JBL speakers en masse and just replacing the insides with some custom circuitry. And you can see here, there's a USB-C cable, but the end of it is 2 pins. These are 2 pins that can connect to a CAN bus. So basically, you would plug this into your speaker, and these 2 pins inside the taillight connector that you just unplugged. And if you pushed a button on your speaker, it would send the message to unlock the car, and then if you pushed a different button, it would send the message to start the car. And boom, now you can drive the car and get away. And it only takes like 2 minutes. There's videos, there's actual videos like surveillance footage that capture on camera people using this attack to steal Toyota vehicles in different parts of Europe. Kind of wild, right? And you know, you might have been following that at this point. You don't even need the owner to be nearby. I don't need his key fob. I don't need his keys. I don't need anything. And then remember when I mentioned how funny it is whenever I see this reported in like Japanese television? So this was a piece that was, I'm sure most of you can't read this, but basically, you know, in typical Japanese news fashion, they're reporting on the latest news that a car theft gang based out of Yokohama was captured, and we discovered the method that they're using to steal these vehicles. Our experts here to tell you the news. So we've got this cute anime boy with a question mark, like, what is this CAN invader attack? That's what it says up there, right? CAN invader, a new theft technique? What is this, right? And it's like, you have the group of thieves represented by this shadowy figure here, right? Like, Japanese news is hilarious, but like they're talking about like the damages caused, like Juoku sanzen is a lot of money. I don't know how to convert that into dollars right now, but it's a lot of money. Basically, they were stealing cars from Chiba, Saitama, and other areas, and then tearing them down and selling the parts for like scrap. And that's how they would profit from this. They would actually take these cars and drive them to like illegally operated junkyards to have them like broken down and then have the parts sold. Really funny. Here's kind of a clip. This is actually on YouTube. This is Tokyo MX. This is a very popular Japanese like TV channel. You got these 2 hosts who are reporting on this, right? And like you watch this, you're like, it's obvious these people have no idea what this is. This is like black magic to them, right? And it's the funniest thing. It's so cool that something like as niche as car hacking can find its way into the mainstream media because of this kind of thing. Obviously, the theft is a tragedy, but yeah, I think I'm running short on time. Sorry, I'll hurry up. But basically, instead of speakers, the Japanese thieves were buying them and having them packaged inside mobile battery packs. So finally, the final comparison. This is the last topic I'm going to go into, the last theft technique. But we see that if we compare this to the other theft techniques we covered before, you don't need the owner to be in proximity. You don't need any kind of user input. And it allows you to drive the car away. It's the perfect car theft when you think about it. Because I just walk up to the car. I don't need to worry about where the owner is. I don't care about his key. I don't need any information or action on his behalf. I can just remove part of the car, plug it in, and drive away. Okay. Perfect crime. So how about countermeasures, right? Very quickly. I know I'm short, so sorry I took so long. I talked too much. We talked about the rolling codes and key exchange, etc., for the replay attacks, right? Key exchange and the clicking buttons is probably not as common, but it is possible. But it's more common in relay-based passive keyless entry things, like we saw with the Bluetooth Low Energy. But that's still the kind of countermeasure that you need to think of when you're securing this kind of system. For the relay codes, when this was actually getting popular in the United States, people would actually recommend that you put your keys in a Faraday cage at night, or like a coffee can, or some kind of steel enclosure that prevents the radio signals from getting out. It's kind of a dumb, like, low-tech answer, but it does the trick, right? Obviously, of course, the distance thing, measuring the distance of the key and the key exchange timing limitations are really good things to have in there, but you have to make sure you do them well enough. And then likewise with the NCC Bluetooth relay cage, the relay attack, the Faraday cages are a good countermeasure for that. But then looking at the CAN injection attack we just covered, what are some of the proposed countermeasures? Because this is a problem that still affects a lot of vehicles. And this is unpatched. They haven't fixed this yet. This was like within the last year and a half it started getting popular. Some people have proposed encrypting the CAN bus, which it has its issues. There's a lot of problems with adding encryption to CAN bus related to false positives and safety critical operations requiring 100% message success. You don't want any like improper encryption or key mismanagement and getting in the way of something. But then more likely is like better network segmentation. So trying to keep the wires that are connected to the important parts better, kept away from one another. And then having your gateway logic work a little bit better. I could talk about this for hours, but I think I've already hit like the mark for how long I'm supposed to be doing this. So the last slide, I promise. So what's next? Car sharing apps. There are apps where you can actually kind of, how you can rent one of those scooters? They have apps like that for cars in some parts of the world. Like Zipcar, for example, is one that I saw in Amsterdam earlier this year, right? They might have like insecure API calls in the mobile apps, so on and so forth. Things like ADAS systems, right? Finding a way to hack a car and unlock it through the camera, maybe like tricking like an earthquake sensing system. Some cars, especially in like Japan, I think people have like considered like earthquake detection systems that will automatically unlock the car. What if you could trick that system into unlocking a car, right? Buses and traffic light signals, so on and so forth. There's a whole industry out there waiting for anybody interested in car hacking to get started. And it makes me happy to see people get involved in car hacking. So I'm finally done talking. Sorry for taking up so much of your time. Thank you all so much for listening. I will be out in the car hacking village a little bit later. I'd be happy to do some hands-on car hacking with everyone. But yeah, if you're interested in getting in touch with me for questions or anything else later, you can find my contact info up there right now. Yeah, if you're interested in a job at Accenture too, please hit me up because we're hiring here in the Philippines. I want to build like more car hackers out here. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. But other than that, if there are any questions in the audience, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'll shut the hell up and get off the stage. Okay. Thank you.